The psychedelic revolution is here. If you want to integrate your visionary experiences into your purpose, get clear on your entrepreneurial path, and help people while you do what you love, then this podcast is for you. Welcome to The Psychedelic Entrepreneur, medicine for these times. I'm your host, Beth Weinstein. I'm a spiritual business coach, 3-time entrepreneur, and a lifelong student of psychedelics and sacred plant medicines. You carry your own unique medicine, and your medicine is what we need for these times. This podcast will help you to share your medicine so you can create transformation in the world. Listen in on conversations with psychedelic leaders, changemakers, and conscious entrepreneurs who are living proof that a better world is possible when you follow your heart and live in alignment with your soul. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Medicine for These Times. I am so honored to have one of my current and almost former clients, Liz, with me here today. Liz Chernett. Hi, Liz. Thank you for being here.
It's an honor and a joy.
I absolutely love talking to my clients and interviewing them. It's a whole other realm that we don't get to go into in our client relationship. I've heard bits and pieces of your story, but I've never heard all of it. And I'm really excited for the audience to learn about your new offering that I am really excited for. I've helped so many clients start up group programs and private coaching and, just expand their business. But I don't think I've ever had a client create a program like yours. And it is starting very soon. It's open now. It starts January? What's the exact date? The 6th?
Yep. Tuesday, 6th. January 6th. Yep.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So we're going to be sharing that here in the show notes. And but let's get going. So I'm curious. Let's tell the audience what you're up to in the world, what you do now. And I would love to hear, what was your path to getting here? I mean, I know you and I actually have similar backgrounds in the old corporate world, but what brought you to this path of working with medicines and people and transformation?
Yeah. So these days I work as a psychedelic mentor and an alchemy coach. I very much bring the mythopoetic into that work that I'm doing. So I've been trained in parts work, in particular a modality called inner team dialogue, which is sort of adjacent to IFS, but a little bit more whimsical and creative, I would say. And I'm just now finishing my training in Jungian coaching as well. So I'm weaving in a lot of the non-directive Jungian techniques and motifs into my work as a space holder and a psychopomp, really. So that's the work that I'm doing. I would say from a more sort of symbolic and mythopoetic standpoint, I identify really as a weaver of words and worlds and webs. And so that, really informs my life. That's sort of part of my personal myth and personal cosmology. So I am not someone who has followed one kind of linear trajectory throughout my life. I have reinvented many, many times. That's just part of my natural constitution. What can I say? Scorpio sun. But so as you mentioned, I worked in the corporate world for nearly 2 decades, actually. So I started my career in consulting. It was actually very fun consulting. It was doing trend forecasting and a lot of futures scenarios work and a lot of ethnographic research. I got to really travel all over the country, even all over the world. I lived in London for a stint for that job. I was really kind of studying the leading edge or even bleeding edge. So I was working with, this is, before Instagram and social media really proliferated into what it was. So I had a network of quote streetscapers who were, people with their finger on the pulse. So I worked in that world for many years and it was super exciting and really fun. I met really fascinating, brilliant people. And at a certain point, I just was like, you know what? This has been so cool and such an amazing foundation for my career, but I was hungering to really kind of get out of the boardroom and really get my hands dirty. So I then made a pretty drastic pivot. I moved out to San Francisco with my partner at the time and didn't have much of a plan. I thought I would just sort of like find my next gig in that industry perhaps, or maybe pivot entirely. And where I landed was in fashion, actually. So I was a fashion stylist for many, many years. So I worked in-house for lots of American brands, Old Navy, Levi's, Gap, freelanced for all different sorts of brands. And again, it was super fun. I got to work on TV sets. I got to do prop styling. I got to, like dress celebrities and just meet so many funny characters, and lots of people that are still, dear friends to this day. And from there, I segued into, art direction, and then full-blown creative direction. So I worked in-house. I worked for myself as a freelancer. I even had a photo booth company for a few years in there. So lots of different twists and turns and pivots. I think what I would say about that, apart from just being someone who really appreciates novelty and new challenges and new stimulation, I have been on a path of seeking, as we all are, and that looks a little differently for each of us. But I think a lot of the sort of pivots that I made now looking back in retrospect was really me searching for work that felt resonant on a deeper level, on a soul level, that really felt like, okay, this is my earth assignment, so to speak. So the way that I found myself on the medicine path, a bit of a long story, but to make a long story bearable, I started working with mushrooms, just, sort of in your very stereotypical teenage way. And those experiences were just so catalytic for me. So they were, what was maybe I was anticipating as, carrying me out of my body or my day-to-day experience and, kind of rainbows and magic carpets and who knows, like all those kind of stereotypes or archetypes. These were experiences that really carried me deeper into myself, into unprocessed grief and some childhood trauma and things like that. So it wasn't a walk in the park, but I knew, this is good. This is definitely moving some stuckness. And so I kind of had this siloed psychedelic life on the side for many, many years. Sitting with ayahuasca for the first time was just a profound shakeup of all my narratives of who I am and who I'm not, and the hand I was dealt, so to speak. That all those explorations and all of that work I was doing with plants over the years, and I'll also say I did plenty of recreational work with psychedelics as well. And I like to mention that because I feel like now there's such an emphasis on like healing work, but like psychedelics for fun and for connection and for intimacy and for play is fucking awesome. And of course safety and harm reduction and all those things, alongside, but I digress. Gosh, what ended up happening, fast forward to 2020, I was at the time a creative director at a startup that was very successful and proliferating and growing like crazy. I was at the helm of a team that I had built for a brand whose, kind of vision and tone and identity I had really helped craft. And it was both exciting and fulfilling, and also really high stakes and high pressure. And again, there was this familiar voice, like, this is not it. This is not your purpose. This is not your earth assignment. And when I gave birth to my son in 2020, so when the pandemic started, I was 6 months pregnant, and ended up giving birth to my son just a few months into the pandemic. So June 1st, 2020, I went into labor, and that was the day that the George Floyd protests erupted right at City Hall in Manhattan. And I was delivering right at City Hall on the ground floor. So there I am in this hospital room. My husband's like trying to get to me, trying to cross the bridge. The bridge is closing. It was just so chaotic. And, again, like ground zero of the pandemic. And I'm there asking these huge existential ontological questions of like, why is this happening like this? What is the meaning of this? Why am I bringing this incarnating this soul in this moment? What is the story that is being born through me and through this moment? And it was a wild mystical experience giving birth. And I had, as my son was passing through the birth canal, I had a very intense and profound sentient experience of passing through my own birth canal. And it was like deja vu times infinity of an experience that I'd had in a journey with mushrooms years before. So like timelines collapsed. So yeah, so it took me some time to really unpack that experience, to really peel back the layers of the meaning. And the silver lining of there being a pandemic is that I went from being like the busiest person who never stopped and never paused living in New York City to actually kind of for the first time, pretty much ever, having all of this kind of unprecedented spaciousness in my life. And it became really clear in those months that my path was taking a new form and a new direction. And I knew that that work was as a healer. And it took me some time to sort of tie up my loose ends and figure out what was going to be my path and where do I want to train and how do I want to step into this. But yes, that was really the initiation into motherhood, was very much like crossing a threshold onto this path.
That is an incredible story. See, I didn't know that. And that's amazing. Wow, how psychedelic is that?
Truly.
Life. So, wow, this is really incredible. And it's funny because I also worked for the Gap. I think we might have known that though. I worked for Gap Incorporated, like the corporate for I don't know how many years. I would say it was the best fashion industry job that I ever had because they were the most like normal place that I could possibly work and the rest were all crazy. So
yeah,
we know that path. So then now you work with clients, coaching and then this upcoming group program, and you do some other work and you do some space holding. So I'm curious, and it's interesting, you seem to have been focusing a lot on working with, let's say, creatives and people in like high-powered positions and entrepreneurs, and then even psychedelic space holders themselves. I'm curious, I think when you came to me, you had this vision for this program that is now coming to fruition, and I'm really excited for it. And of course, you've had some other visions, but what do you feel that inspired you to create this new offering you have, the Oracle Within? Like, did it come out of the blue? Was it years in the making? Was it just, like your own psychedelic experience? Yeah.
I love that question. You know how people talk about, sometimes it's framed as like the fox and the hedgehog, or like the expert and the generalist. I hate the term generalist. Yeah.
I know, I hate it.
But it's like the most dry, vapid. It's like, ugh, when I hear that, I want to like shrivel up. So the way that I reframe this idea of the generalist is like as a kaleidoscope. And that's the name of my practice, is Kaleidoscope Eye, which is like a Beatles reference, to Lucy in the Sky, but is also very much kind of, part of my identity, as like this idea of like shifting the viewfinder, right? And like the pattern, there's so much color and the patterns are infinite. And I guess, so, that's sort of me. I'm someone that kind of constantly falls in love with new schools of thought, with new practices, with new creative endeavors, with new hobbies, with books, with ideas, with philosophies, with spiritual practices and lineages. And so it all kind of like weaves into this sort of like kaleidoscopic soup of passion and interest. I mean, another way to say it is sort of like a quilt. And I used to actually, I made a quilt when I was in high school. I've always loved collage. So there's this theme here, right, of bringing together these disparate bits from different sources, different places, and creating something cohesive. So that is sort of like the foundational layer. And I've been sitting with that a long time. And a lot of my own work with medicine has given me a really, like sort of beautiful view and honestly a bit of a reframe from like, oh, like I lack expertise to like, oh my God, I'm a weaver, and I'm a collager, I'm a kaleidoscope, literally, and then, figuratively speaking as well. So, that's sort of, that's the foundation. So what this offering is about is really bringing together all these things that I've been studying and learning and practicing that have been lighting me up, amalgamating a lot of the sort of like mythopoetic ideas and themes that have been present in my life, that have brought new awareness and awakening to me, pulling in creative expression, pulling in play, which I feel like is nowadays in our culture is sort of framed and considered an indulgence, but play is a necessity. It's really like a necessary act of self-preservation. And along those lines, I created this offering for me because I needed something like this. I need more play in my life. I need more built-in time for creative expression and just, like creative play just for the sake of play because it feels good, because the process is generative, regardless of what we're actually making. So, so that's sort of like the origin story, I guess you could say.
So good. And I have to say, I'm so excited for this because even one of my teachers, who I consider a teacher, but is a very close friend, my friend Sam, who I'm in this thing that he teaches and he does, and he's constantly referencing the fact that we don't even engage in visuals, like visual art, the same way that, maybe even 10 or 15 years ago, but 20 years ago, because now everything's done on technology. We consider reading technology and we consider looking at Instagram as like our art. But like, how often all the listeners, when was the last time you actually created art or just played without like a purpose to produce in mind? And I think that's why I got so excited by this. I was like, wow, I don't know anyone else that's doing anything like this. Who knows? Maybe there is, but and I'm one of those people many years ago where I got a download where I was like, I need to be more creative, like, and not just like creative with cooking or gardening, because those produce a result, but creative for exactly what you said, the process. And I do feel that people that are entrepreneurs or, high level C-suites, or honestly, anybody who's out there in the world, space holders, we need to get out of that monotony of life and set aside time. And it's so weird to think that we need to set aside time to play and just be creative. But that, unfortunately, is the world that we live in. Everybody's so busy. No one has enough time. It's like, if it's not this, it's like filled with that. And I think this is just so interesting. And I'm going to join it and I'm going to be in there. And I actually can't wait. I'm actually more curious to see the other people, to see like, well, how does their life actually get affected by this container of like allowing this and weaving in these mythopoetic stories, this journey into your own life and what you're creating. So let's talk about that a little more. I don't want to give it away, but I'm so excited by this. Also, probably just because I have all the supplies already from doing my own like fun stuff, but I had to force myself to like, okay, it's a Sunday and I'm turning off my phone and I'm forcing myself to be creative. Like that's how bad it had to get. And even then it was only like a few times. But yeah, let's talk about how it's set up and how do you imagine weaving in this, Jungian depth psychology and mythopoetic journey into all of us that are in the program, like creating something?
Yeah, totally. Before I answer that, I just want to say one last piece about the creativity thing, which is really that, well, two things actually. One is that creativity, just the act of being creative, not what it is we actually produce with our creativity, but the act of being creative and expressing ourselves creatively, which of course can be through any number of different, modes or media. That is how we metabolize what life gives us, right? And we forget that because the over culture is so cerebral. And this is something for me and everyone I'm working with, everyone's like, I'm so in my head, right? So creativity is an opportunity to be in our bodies. It is an opportunity for like radical presence. And it is really a way that we metabolize what we don't even have the words. We may or may not have the words to even express or form. And then the other thing I wanted to say about that is just that, I think part of the reason why we have to really force ourselves to be creative is because of the conditioning of what it is we create and this pressure, whether it's conscious or unconscious, to make something, quote, good, right? And so, like, so many of us, whether we realize it or not, we have this like inner art critic who's over our shoulder, like, what are you doing? Is that even good? Is your, like, you're not going to want to show that to anybody. Just stop while you're ahead. It's like, and these voices are operating behind the scenes. And again, it might be voices that we're hearing and we're well aware of. It might also be unconscious. So this is really the antidote to that. It's a way of sort of liberating ourselves from, what is ultimately, I think, very much a capitalist framework on productivity that creeps into our creative lives.
It's I just referred to it as modern day slavery. I mean, really, it's like and I say we because it's literally me and pretty much everyone I know, except I have a couple friends that are truly creatives, but they also do that for their living, and then it's creative, but I also make my living. So then it's kind of tied into that. And it's like the production or the critic, like, what am I, is this a waste of my time and energy? Like, I could be doing something, or I should do, all the voices. And I think this, there's a lot of people out there that have talked about this for many years. And I think you and I both worked in the startup world. I also did go from corporate to startup as well. Yeah. And the startup world knows that, the true innovation comes from being creative. And so many experts have talked about this for a long time. It's like, okay, a team is stuck. Well, don't just keep doing more work. You have to really like you said, get out of the head and like go tap into that well, the well of innovation. And this is like why we're human. This is part of the being alive, and we're creating this whole entire world. But, this modern day life that we live in doesn't even allow for space. And then we throw in phones and apps and technology and, just trying to get by. And it's like, there's literally no space.
Yeah.
None. Yeah.
None. It's true. Yeah. No space. And also no space for like messiness or mistakes. Remember, Miss Frizzle from the Magic School Bus? There's this awesome,
the name.
There's this awesome quote. I feel like she's like the patron saint of creativity and kookiness. I loved the Magic School Bus series as a kid, and she says, take chances, make mistakes, and get messy. And that kind of sums it up. And to your point, like, our culture and our society and how like ratcheted up everything is with intensity and with, sort of productivity, obsession, and even like this paradigm of like healing and fixing ourselves and optimizing everything. To your point, it just does not leave space. It does not leave safety for getting messy and just trying things just for the sake of trying, right? It's like, oh, what do I have to show for this hour or 2 hour block spent doing whatever?
And I think that's important, by the way, to emphasize, because I know a lot of the listeners are on that like fixing healing path. And it's like, wow. That becomes this project. And I know, because I've been there, where it's like, on to the next thing, on to the next thing. And it's like, and there's somewhere to get to, but there's really not, Yeah. And maybe the path of healing is the play and the creativity and the fun and joy, of course.
Yeah. Yeah. That's like a new or different anyway. I don't know how new it is. It actually feels very old, but it's maybe a resurrection of an old way of understanding our healing paths. And no disrespect to healing. But when I was at Psychedelic Science this past summer, just, taking in all of these talks from all of these, sort of disparate areas of the field, from neuroscientists to clinicians to indigenous elders and everywhere in between, it was like I was kind of zooming out. I'm like, okay, what was the connective tissue of all of these different topics and themes and talks? And it was like, the whole point of healing is to create, right? And what we create looks different for each of us, but the whole point is to step into our creative power. And again, that doesn't have to be visual art. Maybe it is, but it could be, there's infinite possibilities of what we can create, but it's like to be in that frequency of creation and creativity. But to answer your question around how this is sort of like laid out and formatted, and how we bring in the mythopoetic. So this the oracle within, I'm calling it a mythopoetic integration studio. And I use the word studio, of course, because we're going to be creative. And it's fully remote. We're going to convene, over Zoom, and essentially each of our sessions, there's going to be 7 live 2-hour sessions across 9 weeks. And each of our sessions is going to be devoted to a distinct mythopoetic theme. And of course, these themes sort of fit together in an arc of some kind. And I don't want to give away too much, but essentially I'll be sort of the world builder, if you will, bringing these themes to life through some of these sort of Jungian ideas and the mythopoetic, going into some, mythic stories and archetypes, especially some that are like lesser known. I feel like there are these kind of classic archetypal examples or mythic stories that people may be more familiar with. So this is an opportunity to kind of go off the beaten path of the mythopoetic and bring in some stories that may be new and some archetypes that may be new and different for folks. And to really sort of sink into a process of both group reflection and self-reflection through, writing and creativity, wherein we can understand how these archetypal themes and mythopoetic currents are flowing and expressing through us and through our stories, or through the stories of the people with whom we are in relationship. And of course, in being in relationship with someone, we are part of their story, right? So it's sort of like at the heart of this is really about like the stories we tell about ourselves, the stories that we are part of. I think it's this poet, I can't remember her name, Muriel, I can't remember her last name, but she says like the universe is made of stories, not atoms. Right. So this is very much sort of diving into stories as like a kaleidoscope, if you will, for understanding ourselves through a new light, a new lens. So that will be kind of like the first half of each of these sessions is the sort of deep dive into the mythopoetic. And then we get to kind of express it onto the page. And the page becomes kind of the altar for what is living and breathing and what is landing, what is resonating, what is expressing, what is becoming known, what is becoming revealed. And our primary medium is going to be collage, which I'm really, really excited about because I think collage is so perfect for this in so many ways. First of all, it's accessible. It's like everybody can, flip through a magazine or paper ephemera or look through an old box of, photos taken from, like the old school instant cameras and pull aside images or photos or textures or symbols or glyphs or phrases that jump out. Right. So it's like, I really want to clarify for folks, like you do not need to be an artist or identify as an artist to do this. In fact, this is like so ideal for anyone out there who's maybe feeling a little creatively blocked, or maybe you've never really identified or felt, a belief in your own kind of creative abilities or gifts. If you can use scissors, feel your feelings, be curious, wield a glue stick, you're good. And, there's also going to be some kind of gentle structure for those who want it with regards to, each week we'll be, making a unique collage, and I'll be giving some prompts and some guidance and some kind of, offering up some techniques and some inspiration through imagery. And we're just going to play and let it be emergent and see what wants to take shape.
So fun. I'm so excited. And I think this is why I am, and I'm not being biased just because you're my client. It's truly, as someone who's invested in tons of programs and trainings, and I do I do this one class every week, and, and they're all great and I love them. There is a certain level of the interaction has only gone so far, even when they're sharing, sharing and community connection is wonderful, but getting like your hands involved is great. And I think I'm also really excited because I learned a whole different level of collage this summer and I loved doing it. We actually wouldn't leave. We went like 2 hours over the workshop.
Wow.
And actually a collage artist that lives near me. And it was like, especially for those of us that are working with the medicines or other facilitators that are listening, it's really a good practice to be doing something like this, that it's like stimulating a part of your brain you're probably not touching ever, or just getting out of your head and getting into an immersive process. And I can't wait to see what comes out of it. And I'm curious, because you had mentioned working with creatives, but also other people, in the healing and space holding realm, coaches, therapists. Why would it be good for someone like that? Like, let's say other psychedelic space holders or, coaches, healers.
Yeah. Well, I think that this is an opportunity to learn some new ways in to meaning making and integration, right? I mean, integration has become such a buzzword, and it's also like, well, what does that even really mean, right? And it looks different for each of us. And I personally feel like a lot of the sort of discussion about integration or the practices around integration have become a little bit, I don't know, not necessarily one size fits all, but like a little bit generic. It's like, and yes, meditation is great. Walking in nature is great. Journaling is great. But I think this space is really ripe for a little bit of new energy and definitely like this infusion of play, because sometimes, these sort of modalities that we're being suggested or offered to step into leading up to a medicine ceremony or after, in service to meaning making and service to anchoring, it could feel sometimes a bit laborious or sometimes a bit like heady or heavy,
More
right?
work.
So this is, so this is an opportunity to kind of just like learn and practice and experience some new ways of making meaning that feel a little bit more, let's say, magical than methodical. And the other thing I'll say is, as someone who, does like a good amount of guiding and holding space for folks in medicine land, it's a lot to carry. It's a lot to hold. So I think this opportunity to play, to let go, to like honestly just sort of inhabit our 4, 5, 6-year-old selves, where we just sort of surrender and allow ourselves that space to engage with our imagination is very healing and very restorative. I think it's like a very like powerful way of sort of cleansing ourselves, Yeah. And I think, again, like so many of us live in our heads. I think for space holders and coaches and healers and clinicians, it's like, okay, train, learn, a lot of didactics. And yes, there's a lot of opportunities and trainings to like practice these didactics that we're learning, but it's still very heady, right? It's still very cerebral. So, I think that, again, this is just like a sort of flipping the script, and imagination matters. It's part of our inherent magic as human beings. And I think we re-enchant the world by strengthening our relationship to our imagination and, participating in creative expression and harnessing our imagination is a way of actively participating in like the magic of life. So
good. Yeah, it's funny. What was it? 3 years. It's funny. I'm like, wow, I can only name 2 or 3 times where I was in an integration circle after a ceremony. And one was led by someone who also does, kind of creative work. We had, what do you call it? Not charcoals, the other pastels and paper. Yeah. And that was our integration. And then we just shared what we did. And it was like timed, where it was like very quick and you didn't even have time to create on purpose. And it was one of the best integration experiences I've ever had. And then another one, which I've been wanting to do again, and just we had an integration circle where we weren't, where no one was allowed to speak. You had to you had to like dance out or act out your experience from the night before. And then, I mean, it was deep to see what came through people without actually, sharing from the head, which of course, everyone says, oh, like share what's alive. But you listen to people in these integration circles, and most people are still recalling from the head. You can usually tell who's really dropped in and who's not, but it's like, most of it is like, like linear. This is what happened, and that happened, and then this, and then this, and then I thought of this, and it's like, is that even helping anyone? And it's interesting. I've had a lot of clients go through training programs, like you mentioned. There's a lot of training. I think it's all great. I get it. I'm in a training, constantly at this point. But It is true. It's like the creativity doesn't really happen until you're actually going and doing something. And the one complaint of pretty much every client of mine that's done, especially psychedelic training programs, is that it was just all head, you know? And it's like, well, until we had the in-person experience, it's not really, I almost wonder if it's like even helping anyone. And I've been saying that for years. And of course, I've gotten a lot of criticism for it. I think it's great to train, and the real training is through these embodied, lived experiences within yourself and your own path, and also with others. So I really love this, and I'm really excited because I do feel like this is what the world needs. And I feel like people like me, and like you said, a lot of people who've done many, many years of healing work and training, it's like, this is the missing piece, is like, where's the play? Where's the fun and creativity? But I'm also curious, and this is where I've gotten downloads about this many, many years ago, but it just feels so alive right now. Where do you feel like the world is going when it comes to creativity and this idea of being creative, especially with someone like you who has this background in creative, creative direction and design? We have this AI situation, which I'm trying to come to terms with. Today, a musician I follow posted about AI music, and I'm like, wow, I figured it was out there. I didn't know there's whole albums that are created with AI now. And then I created my birthday invitation with AI, and then I hired my designer to like clean it up and make it into a real design. And even that felt very like I didn't really want to be doing it, but I had to do it very quickly. But how do you feel about where we're heading as a human race with, let's say, technology and AI? And, right now it's where it's at, but like, who knows where it's going to be in a couple years? Like, I might be able to say, draw me up this entire web page that looks just like this, and actually get the result in 5 seconds. Now it usually takes days to get a decent result. But, what are your thoughts on this? And have you seen into the future about where we're heading?
Yeah. As far as the AI thing is concerned, it's funny because someone just asked me about this yesterday, someone who's going to join the Oracle Within. And he was asking me about my opinion of generative AI. And the truth is, like, I think, I have only worked with AI and experimented with it in relatively basic ways. Like, I'm not deep in the well of, generative AI and creating visual art through AI. Having said that, I don't have an issue with it. I feel curious, and I feel open and curious is sort of my stance. And, I don't have like so much expertise on that matter. Zooming out from the conversation about AI and just where creativity is going, and sort of picking up some of the themes that we've already explored in this conversation, I feel like this, and we've talked about this, it's like we're in this crossroads moment where it's like this kind of wounded masculine paradigm of go produce more product, knowledge. It's like the logos, the wounded kind of logos energy is starting to dissolve. And what is emerging in greater fullness is the divine feminine of like emergence and organic generativity and creativity and, sort of like earth-based wisdom. And, it's like everything is coming full circle. So that's sort of my view on kind of super macro what's happening at this moment. And I believe that's why, all of these sort of masculine structures are collapsing in such a dramatic way, and why like all in like the polarization is sort of shattering things, right? Whether it's like our political system or our economic system, like late stage capitalism, and also like just burnout, like how pervasive it is, burnout. And I have fallen into all of this myself, like, and, we've talked about this. But when I can kind of like unblend from the parts that are conditioned by this kind of wounded masculine overculture and come into my core higher self, my spiritual essence, my feminine essence, it's so clear that we are really in this, like, we're in a great turning. We're in like a total paradigm shift, and it's messy. It's anxiety inducing. It's really kind of enlivening and inspiring, and it's fucking untamed. Like, AI is untamed. It's just like, it's like a wilderness, And so we have to suit up, and we have to like be really intentional about how we want to navigate the wilderness. You don't like just like head into the bush without proper gear, without a sense of where you're going, without a guide. If you don't know those forests at all, you have to know like the native species and the dangers that are abound, in order to kind of like make it out unscathed. But if you do, it's like, my God, like, there's so much beauty and so much revelation, and, making that sacred trek, so to speak.
So well said. Yeah, it's a really interesting time, and of course, this has come up on a lot of podcasts I've done recently. I think with just so much going on this time of year with astrological changes, and it's wild times, and it's also very exciting. And like you said, it's this wounded masculine, like the core of like I said to a friend yesterday, like it's the depth of scarcity built into the human wounding. It's like in that part of us that feels like we need to just be constantly like going. And then we throw in, the overall, like this meta crisis, right? There's this huge crisis in every aspect of life. And I keep getting, and I've told you this, which is probably why I'm so excited for this offering and to see where it could, go to and expand to. Like, who knows? I mean, I have theories as to where you'll go over the next few years, but I personally, and maybe it's because I've been feeling it and getting visions of it, but I feel like there's so much coming at us from an intellectual, like, information consuming place, right? Like, people are glued to their phones. My friend last night was sharing how someone, he's like, yeah, I just saw someone almost get hit by a car, and which us that used to live in New York City saw it all the time. People just don't even look at traffic anymore. It's like
so crazy.
Yeah. There's so much of that it almost feels so ripe for a creative, artistic, like in-person, embodied, touching something with your hands revolution.
Yeah.
And, I know people that have been putting on like creative retreats with medicine, like that kind of thing. And I'm like, oh my God, I just want to go to that. The retreats that I've helped be a part of over the last couple of years, like that is all I do. This is why I have so many art supplies, by the way. I bring tons of stuff with me. And then I'm like, okay, today I'm going to be pulling out all the art supplies, and you can join me out here. And it's amazing how many people are like so excited to just like draw and paint and play. And no one brings anything except me. And it's like, and then it turns into like a week of just doing art, for everybody.
Oh,
and
wonderful.
But there's so many people that are like, and even me, I've said for years, like, well, the only time I can go and paint and draw and play and like get creative is when I'm in the middle of nowhere in Peru, which is sad. It's like, I shouldn't have to take myself on a retreat offline for 2 weeks in order to be creative. And that's why I'm so happy that you're bringing this in, with this mythopoetic kind of slant to it, and also making it available to people that are on this medicine path or not. People who, integration is not just the medicine. It's like, how are you integrating your life? So
totally. Yeah. Well said. Yeah. And thank you so much, because I feel like, we're really like vibing on the same frequency. And it's like, I so relate to what you're expressing about like, oh, I have to be here, and it has to be this, and it has to be like all these like quote conditions for giving myself permission to be creative. And so it was like, I was like, okay, it's like the writer who writes the book that they themselves needed. It's like, there's definitely that energy behind this creation is like, okay, let me create something that's, ultimately what I need. And I know I'm not the only one out there.
Yes. That's how it goes. Always,
Yeah.
always want to create what you need. You know, even my first psychedelic summit, I remember thinking, well, there must be 50 people on planet Earth that feel this way. You know what I
Right.
mean? It's like just to
Right.
have that mindset of like, even if it's like 10 of us that get it, and then it just will grow and grow and grow. But I believe it will be much more. I'm curious, you know, the people who've joined, have they said anything about this and like why they're excited or what got them? Just, you know, for anybody listening that's like, I have never done anything like this, or I've never even heard of anything, you know, why are people joining it?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's really kind of all these themes that we've touched upon, people feeling like they don't have kind of built-in space or time in their lives to really like be fully radically present, and to dip into the well of their creative impulses. I think there's a growing interest in the mythopoetic and, you know, kind of this kind of lineage of story and an understanding that ultimately the entire reality that we live in and exist in is just a matter of like our stories, right? The stories we tell, the stories we take in, the stories we pass on, the stories that have been passed on to us. So I think, you know, I think my sense from folks who have signed up is that there's, you know, the meeting of these two spaces is really exciting and compelling. And yeah, and just to like, I guess the feedback that I'm getting and that you've kind of reflected as well is like, oh, this is different. You know, this doesn't feel like any of the other things out there. And so yeah, I mean, there may be some other people out there doing some similar things, but you know, I haven't been able to find them. Otherwise, I would have
I know.
I would have been in their thing. But yeah, so yeah, and that was part of my intention. You know, it's like I really want to create something that's like new for me, new for the world, maybe, and really try to sort of just like kind of forge a new path in this space that just like opens up a little bit more possibility.
Love it. I love it. Thank you. And I'm curious, you know, when you came to me, you were like, I always say, like, most of my clients come to me, a lot of them are like in a pretty good place. Like, you were good, right? But you came to me with these kind of big dreams and aspirations and wanting to kind of like rejigger your business around a little bit and make it a little more sustainable, you know, sustainable with time, with money, earnings. And, you know, you have a family, you have lots going on. And I'm curious, you know, creating this, how did this, how did working with me or working in this container together, help you create this new offering? And like, was this out of your comfort zone? Was this something like you would have done on your own, but like couldn't figure out how? Or did you come to me knowing that you were going to launch this? Like, I'm curious the journey of how this came from, you know, when we first started to here it is launched and ready to start in just a few weeks.
Yeah. Well, first of all, it's just been such an amazing gift and honor to work with you and get to know you. And, you know, the work that we're doing is, I think what makes your work so powerful and potent is the blending of both strategy and just, you know, like the tactical knowledge and the step-by-step framework for people, you know, like myself and people, you know, in varying stages of where they are in building their business, married with the spiritual. Really is like, you know, the energetics of creation, the energetics of money, the energetics of trust and emergence and process. So it's just, yeah. And, you know, you were on my radar for so long and I was following you and tuning into the summit. And, you know, it's just like one day. And then it was just like, I remember, you know, I was, I remember where I was. I was like actually sitting on a bench, kind of like in the forest a little bit. I was like, had gone for a little walk in the woods and I was sitting on a bench and I checked my email and I saw one of your emails and I can't say exactly why, but it was just like, I got this, like it almost, it was just like a spark and it was like, this is the right time, you know? So, and you know, if I'm honest, Beth, I mean, I think this offering has been like swimming around in my kind of cosmic soup for a while, but I don't know if I would have been able to bring it to life in the same way. I think like, you know, I've done a lot of winging it, and it's like it's worked okay, it's worked relatively well, knock on wood, gratefully. But it's like, we don't always have to just like move through a process just solely by winging it. So, having the anchor of your framework, having the anchor of your wisdom, and you having like walked this walk and like witnessed and held, been a guide really for so many people on this trajectory of building a sort of soul aligned, spiritually oriented business. It's just been, I honestly, no, I don't think that things would be, what's happening now, I don't think would have been happening.
Yeah. Oh, thank you. Thanks for sharing. And I'm curious because it's, it's a deep path. And I mean, it's not just you, it's all my clients always, ever, pretty much. I've never witnessed any client just like coast through life during our time together. I believe that this is soul work, especially those that are working in the medicine space, especially those that are working in the transformational realm, which is 99.99% of my clients. And it's your own journey. It's always this depth of like, okay, well, who are you being and who are you becoming, and what's in the way? And I'm curious, like, do you have any moments during our time together that you can reflect on that are like, okay, that was like a portal, like the challenge. And I mean, of course there's always challenges, but you know what I mean? Like the into the abyss and the coming out the other side. And I mean, I will say, I don't think yours, like I've seen some clients over the years get really like their lives burst into flames. Yours was nowhere near that. But then they come out and it's like, la. But yeah, did you have any of those moments where you're like, what the fuck am I doing? I'm going to quit and give up on all of this.
Oh my God. So many. I mean, I have met so many shadows and edges of discomfort throughout this process, which is, obviously so valuable. It's kind of like the other layer of, what I'm sort of reaping from this investment of working with you. The main thing for me, and I like, honestly, I'm still sort of in it a little bit, although I feel like I'm starting to kind of find my way out of the cave, but it's just like the marketing self-promotion piece. Like I had been entirely off social media for 5 years when we started working together. I mean, like just not just like not posting, like not going on whatsoever. And, yeah, I don't have necessarily any regrets about that. I don't, it's like I'm one of few people who's actually trying to get more on social media as opposed to more off. But, that process of like re-emerging out there and sort of like fully coming out, so to speak, of the psychedelic closet and being like, this is the work I'm doing. This is what I'm creating. This is like the space I'm in. Man, that has been so uncomfortable for me. And just like promoting this offering has been wildly uncomfortable. Even just like the idea of like sending all these emails and I'm like, oh, I don't want to like annoy people, like all these things of like, I'm too much. And like, is anyone going to sign up? And will anyone come to my party? It's like, there have been so many familiar insecurities and voices of self-doubt that have crept up during this time, and including insecurities that I thought that I had kind of released or maybe like, extinguished a while ago, that just hadn't been so salient. And now here they are again. It's like, oh shit. Okay. We're back here we are again, and, like we've talked about, it's a spiral, right? It's like, it's not a circle. It's like, I'm now at a new sort of rounding a curve that's, like a little bit further up the spiral than I was however many years ago. But, so there have been so many moments like that. And it's like, it's uncomfortable. It's challenging. Like you've definitely seen me in tears probably more than once, but it's also like, what a gift to be able to have like this container for working through, some of the scarcity or some of the shadow material that's still operating.
And good work. I mean, that's all we can say. It's like, that's part of it. And I've seen, I mean, this is, I don't know if it was you I said it to this week or someone else, but I said, this is why I love working with my clients that have worked with medicines, because those people that are willing to go there. And, to me, anybody that's touching a psychedelic is somewhat willing to go there because They tend to be more uncomfortable than not for the most part. And, as long as you're willing to go there and look at those shadows and look at those, the wounds that come up and the patterns and the depths of in the spiral, there it is again, just a different layer. This is where I've seen businesses really grow and take off, which is why I'm talking about it more, why I'm doing it more with my clients, even though we've always done it. But to know that, the strategies only go so far. And I will say it's fascinating because you were doing pretty well, completely fine actually, without social media. And this is something I'm even leaning into more, where it's I think it's about the energy and the frequency of okay, you're showing up on social, not trying to get anything, but really showing up because you have something you're passionate about that you want to share. Not because it's I need to show up there and just sell people things, which I think everyone's kind of getting sick of on some level. And, I think it's already changing. It's changed since a few years ago, and it's going to continue changing. But if you're out there just sharing what you love, sharing something helpful, and also just showing the universe that you're willing to get out of that comfort zone, okay, yeah, it's uncomfortable to promote something. And I think, as I say, there's always a place that anybody can get to where it just gets easier over time. Once you build and become more known and reach more people, it's okay, there is a place where it just gets easier and it manifests. But a lot of it is just showing up for your business, even just that moment on the bench. And I think that's because I've heard so many, and even I go through this when I hire coaches or work with mentors. It's the same thing where it's okay, it's now time. Now I know. And I'm not going to wait longer because what's waiting going to do? Life right. happens now, and waiting 2 or 3 more years, if anything, I'm always start today. Always now as soon as possible, because it's only, we'll see what happens, but I do think things are going to get interesting and maybe weird. And I think we're going to see a whole landscape change over the next few years. And yeah, I have my theories about it, and I'm kind of excited because I think change is always good. But I think there's going to be a lot of people that are really left in the dust, and that's what makes me sad is if people don't see it and they don't prepare, and really build a certain place where your business is solid and you're solid within yourself and you're willing to do that deeper work, then it gets easier each time. It's okay. But yeah, I'm so glad you shared this, and thank you so much. It's it's been so fun to work with you. It's such an honor. I love when I get to witness a client birth a dream true, through. I remember, I think during our first meeting, you had all these ideas and all these different offerings. And then it was okay, how do we focus in on what you truly love? What do you want to do more of? What do you want to do less of? And where do you want to leverage your time and energy? And it was well, and I remember, I think you were creating something else. And then you were actually, what I really want to do is this. Yeah. And I remember I was oh yeah, this is totally it,
Totally. Yes. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Well, thank you so much. Thank you for everything. And it's just been, totally perfect timing. I agree with you. It's now is always the time. Having said that, I feel it was so divinely timed, for when we did this together. And, it's just been so interesting. I even had a really big experience with a medicine I just cherish, Jurema, or Tepescoite, as people refer to it in Mexico, just before we began our work together. And one of the visions I had, it was the very beginning. It was the first night of medicine. It was right when I dropped in. And I had a vision of a blue room. It was blue floor, blue walls, blue ceiling, blue furniture, blue desk, blue chair. And it was just this blue neon sign that was get to work. And, as someone who, again, has pivoted and loves change and loves newness and is constantly falling in love with a new thing and a new idea and a new this and a new that. I've really had to reconcile with my work this year has been about completion, is about and this is a year of completion, right? The 9-year, the snake year. But seeing things through, because I would say more than anything, more than social media. Well, maybe not more than sugar. That's one of my vices. But like, I would say like my most primary addiction is actually to starting. I love starting a new book. I love falling in love with a new podcast. I love, like starting a new like art hobby. But it's like the seeing through that has been kind of challenging for me. So it's really been so helpful to have the containment of our work to help me really bring this thing through to fruition.
Thank you for sharing that, because there's a lot of people listening that can relate. I mean, I can't tell you the amount of times I see, this is one of the reasons I get clients is people are like, shiny object syndrome. And I think, me and you are very similar. I'm a 7. I don't know. Are you a 7 on the Enneagram? It's like
I have a 7 wing. Yeah, I'm a 4, tortured artist type. But yes, I very much relate to the 7, the novelty seeker. Yeah.
Enthusiast. I get enthused by everything. And many, many years ago, I had to retrain myself to actually see things through and like just complete them. Even if they're not perfect, they never will be perfect. And I feel like it's actually gotten worse out there. It's just the world we live in, really kind of rewards that thinking. I mean, look around. It's like everything is designed to grab our attention, and there is that like shiny object, like start this, and it's normal. And I think this is why so many people suffer from, or come to me or come to other people saying like, I need accountability. And it's like, well, wait a second, like, what happened to human accountability for themselves and their dreams? But it's just so easy. And then you throw in, motherhood and running a household and paying the bills and pickups and soccer practice and all the things. I mean, it's really easy to just get like for so many people. And I know, because I'm the same way. I can't even tell you, I'm about to buy 2 new books and I'm like, I really need these books, but I have started probably like 15 books in the last like 6 months. And I'm like,
I know. Yeah. Yeah. Yes to all of that. And also, we can have grace with ourselves. Exactly. I just learned the term bibliomancy, which is like, when it's like the sort of like synchronicity of a book coming in at that given moment or time. And so, yeah, it's a dance of just being like, okay, I'm going to finish this book before I start another. And also, yes, to sort of like the divine timing and bibliomancy of this particular book showing up at this time and kind of leaning into that.
Yeah. And you never know when you're going to want to just switch to the other book. So, yeah. Well, Liz, I'm so excited. First of all, I'm going to repeat the Oracle Within starts in early January. We have the link right here in the show notes. I believe it's going to be really fun. I mean, you can look on the website and see the whole like a kind of course or the program syllabus and learn all about it. But I'm excited because it's a very pivotal time in my life, and we'll see what gets created. And I think this is really helpful for a lot of you who are just looking for a different way of activating energy in the new year. So we'll have people check it out, and we'll have all your information here right in the show notes. And this is so exciting. It was such an honor to have you on here and share about your work. And where else can people reach you and find out about your other offerings?
Yeah, totally. Well, my website, kaleidoscopeeyecoaching.com, has a lot more about me and sort of my approach to what I offer. You can find the webpage for the Oracle Within there. And by the way, I have a coupon code for your audience for $50 off. So that is Oracle 50. So anyone out there who's interested, be sure to take advantage of that through the end of the year. And I have a podcast with a psychedelic soul sister named Lily Eggers, who is also a couples therapist based in the Bay Area. And our podcast is called In Right Relationship, and it is about psychedelics and the sacred. So those are great places to find me. And then also I am on Instagram. I haven't given up my old handle, so it's Wawa John, which is a very Philly. If you're from Philly or anywhere on the East Coast, you might get it. But if you know, you know. But it's WAWAJAWN is my Insta handle. So you can find me there. And those are probably the best places.
Great. Thank you so much for sharing. Really excited for you, and I'm so proud of you.
Oh, thank you. Love you. Such an honor. Truly. I'm so grateful.
Oh, thank you. I hope you enjoyed the episode. If you're feeling inspired, I'd appreciate it if you showed your love with a review. And check out my YouTube channel where you can find the video version of this podcast. You can also head to bethaweinstein.com to learn more about me and grab my free business growth trainings. Remember, you carry your own unique medicine, and your medicine is what we need for these times.